was a necessary evolution. Some ideas, like some people, just can't scale. The words hung in the air-conditioned chill of the venture capital pitch room. Xavier stood in front of the blinding white projector screen, a confident silhouette delivering my eulogy. The light caught the smug curve of his mouth as he turned to the investors, a silent invitation for them to agree with his brilliance. My vision, my code, my company, all reduced to an unfortunate, unscalable person. Me. Room waited for my reaction. I kept my expression perfectly neutral and my voice low. You have exactly 60 seconds. Xavier and I met at a university hackathon, a blur of caffeine and desperate coding. He was the front man, all charisma and vision. I was the architect in the background, making his grand pronouncements functional. We won. We celebrated at a dive bar, sketching the future of our company, Viridian Dynamics, on a beer-stained napkin. The energy was electric. Never met someone who seemed to understand my ambition so perfectly. That was the good memory. The first red flag was a small thing. 6 months later, we co-authored an article for a prominent tech journal. When it was published, my name was nowhere on the byline. An editorial oversight, he'd said, his hand on my shoulder, his apology so smooth and practiced. I was so busy debugging our first major project that I let it go. It was just a byline after all. The next 2 years were our golden period. We moved from a garage to a sleek co-working space downtown, our logo on the glass door. We landed contracts with brands I'd only dreamed of working with. We lived on takeout from a place called Pow Pow and spent our nights mapping out a revolutionary piece of software, a project management tool I'd named Synapse. My savings, about $40,000, went into keeping the servers running and the lights on while Xavier, our head of business development, took clients to expensive dinners at Del Frisco. It was building relationships, he said. It was an investment. The imbalance was gradual. I gave my code, my time, my money. He took the credit, the lunches, the spotlight. He'd present my work at conferences and return with stories of how everyone loved his ideas. I rationalized it. We were a team. He was the face, I was the engine. It worked. Until it didn't. The discovery was accidental, mundane. I was trying to sync a file from our shared cloud server late one Tuesday and saw a folder I didn't recognize. Synapse V2 Solo. It was password protected. My blood went cold. For the next 3 weeks, I became a detective in my own life. I used a simple recovery tool on our shared dev machine, a piece of company property. It wasn't hard to find the password cache. Inside the folder was the future he was building without me. New LLC, Apex Innovations, registered in Delaware. A new bank account, and a pitch deck filled with my work rebranded as his solo venture. Worse, I cross-referenced our Viridian Dynamics accounts on QuickBooks. Over the last 8 months, he had been siphoning funds, small amounts at first, then larger ones, totaling exactly $75,300 into his Apex account. He wasn't just stealing our future. He was using our present to finance it. Breaking point came a month later. He invited me to pitch meeting with Skyward Ventures, framing it as our big break. The lie was so audacious I almost admired it. He stood before the partners, Mr. Zhao and Ms. Patel, and presented my work as his own. He introduced me not as his co-founder, but as an early-stage contractor whose work had provided a foundational, if limited, starting point. Then came the monologue, the one I'll never forget. This required a complete rewrite, a visionary leap that, frankly, my original partner wasn't equipped to make. It's about building a legacy, not just a product. Some people are just coders, others are founders. The world went quiet. Low hum of the projector fan was the only sound I could hear. In that sterile, silent room, my plan didn't begin. It simply crystallized, fully formed. As he clicked to his final slide, I saw it, a tiny, overlooked detail. The logo for Apex Innovations was in the bottom right corner, but he was projecting from our shared laptop. And the PowerPoint file's metadata, visible for a split second as he toggled windows, still listed the author as Viridian Dynamics. It was a stupid, arrogant mistake. His first of many. My attorney, Veronica Stone, was a shark in a tailored suit. She specialized in intellectual property and partnership dissolution. Her retainer was painful, but as she laid out the path forward, I knew it was the best money I'd ever spend. For the next 7 weeks, we prepared. My apartment became a war room, covered in bank statements, printouts of my original time-stamped code from GitHub, and server logs. The cost climbed past $15,000. I had one close call when Xavier saw an email from Veronica's firm pop up on my phone screen. A tenant dispute with my landlord, I said, not missing a beat. He was so focused on his own deception, he never suspected mine. Our evidence was a fortress. We had 58 separate code commits in my name, predating the existence of his shell company. He had the server logs showing him accessing my private directories at 3 a.m. We had the transaction records for the $75,300. We had a recorded Zoom call. My state has one-party consent, where I'd asked him about a minor code change, and he'd admitted, the core logic of V2 is still yours, I just gave it a better user interface. The final piece was an affidavit from a client he'd tried to poach for Apex, who was loyal to me. But Veronica's masterstroke was the decoy. We drafted a simple partnership dissolution agreement. It looked like a standard buyout. Buried in the boilerplate, however, was a clause stating that all intellectual property developed during the Viridian partnership remained joint property of Viridian, even if leveraged by a new corporate entity. Eager to cut me loose for a pittance, Xavier signed it on DocuSign without his lawyer even reading it. The final meeting was a formal mediation at Veronica's firm. The conference room was gray and soulless. Xavier and his lawyer walked in, radiating confidence. Thought he was there to write a small check and be done with me forever. Xavier, I just want to confirm the numbers before we sign, I said, my voice perfectly level. He smiled, a magnanimous predator. Whatever you think is fair. Veronica didn't say a word. She just slid a single piece of paper across the polished mahogany table. It was the bank statement showing the $75,300 transfer from Viridian to Apex. Xavier's lawyer went rigid. Xavier sputtered, claiming it was a loan, a misunderstanding. Then came the second wave. Veronica calmly presented the signed dissolution agreement, the one he'd clicked through a week ago. She highlighted the IP clause. She explained with surgical precision that Apex Innovations legally owned nothing. The code, the name, the product, it all belonged to Viridian Dynamics, and since he was being terminated for cause, embezzlement, and breach of fiduciary duty, his equity was forfeit. Color drained from his face. A muscle in his jaw jumped. You can't do this, he whispered. I built this. This was my vision. I finally met his gaze. You built it with my money and my code. The fallout was swift and brutal. Veronica sent a single, polite letter to Skyward Ventures, informing them of the IP ownership dispute. Their $9 million term sheet for Apex vanished overnight. The tech world here is small, and stories of founder fraud travel at the speed of light. His reputation was incinerated in less than 24 hours. The final settlement was an execution. Relinquished all claims to Viridian Dynamics and its intellectual property. A judgment was entered against him for the embezzled $75,300, plus my legal fees, for a total of $112,000. He had to sell his condo to pay it. 6 months later, I saw him. He was working at a Best Buy, wearing a blue polo shirt with their logo on it, explaining the features of a smart thermostat to a bored couple. The visionary, reduced to explaining someone else's technology for an hourly wage. I rebranded the company. Synapse is mine now, wholly and cleanly. I have a new co-founder, a brilliant woman named Zara, and we just closed a modest but honest round of seed funding. My new office is smaller than the one we shared, but the view of the city is all mine. There is a deep, unshakable peace in the work now. Yesterday, in a pitch to a new investor, she asked about the company's origin story. I smiled. It was a necessary evolution, I told her. Some ideas, like some people, need the right foundation to scale. The code was always mine, now the quiet is too.